Hi everyone, we've not done a Tetras video in a while, so here's Tetras 7. It's all about larger species, and we have a strict size limit to have larger fish this time. And hopefully you'll agree that these are just as interesting. For those of us that keep cichlids and catfish, it's nice to have the Tetras a little bigger, so they don't get eaten or damaged by the other fish. Argonectes are similar to Hemiotus, but I find that they are considerably more aggressive. At less than 10 centimeters, you can usually keep them as a group without any problems, but as they get larger, their aggression becomes more apparent. They then show a black dash on their flanks, and the dominant fish constantly swim with their dorsal fin upright and a dark haze of blue or black over their body. They actually chase each other around a lot. I've watched Argonectes in the headwaters of the Xingu, and they're almost always solitary, mixed into groups of Hemiotus, and maybe when they reach their full size of 20 centimeters or more, they'll be too aggressive to stay together in a loose school in the aquarium as well. I really like darter tetras, and the bigger the better. There are 70 species of these things now, but we almost always see the same common ones in the hobby. The cool ones are the big rheophile species that often get nice green color, and you can watch their funny antics a bit better. This one comes from the Atlantic coast, but there are also big ones in the Brazilian shield rivers and some absolute giants in the headwaters of the rivers in Guyana, species we have yet to see and that are still undescribed. These are among the most fun fish to watch, and within that big diversity there are plenty of smaller ones for smaller tanks that also get along well with small tetras. There are also the really small Odontocharacidium, Melanocharacidium and Clausewitsia. The key with these fish is that they need to pick at the substrate to feed. If you can't get enough small food for them and have enough leftovers for the slow-feeding Characidium, they tend to starve to death. For an aquarium with various smaller plecos or corridoras, this is an ideal fish. The genus Creagrutus, 70 species, and most of us can't name one of them. This is the smallest fish today, with around 8 centimeters adult size. These tetras are found throughout South America, with many of them in the foothills of the Andes. We even have a video that shows some of them in nature. Their preferred habitats are clear water streams or rivers with fast-flowing water. There is also a species in the Rio Xingu. This beautiful, very slender-bodied Creagrutus occurs in the headwaters of the Orinoco Basin and now gets exported on occasion from Colombia. These are super active tetras that are territorial and constantly displayed to each other. They get along well with most other fish and are in constant motion near the bottom of the tank. I think if we got to see more of these odd characins, they would also be more popular. Somehow, Creagrutus translates to tear up the flesh, and while these fish are territorial, I've never seen them harm each other. Maybe because of the shark-like head shape is how they got their name. This intense-looking large tetra is found just outside Rio de Janeiro, and it's in the coastal rivers of Brazil. We get few fish from there, other than perhaps scleromistax and the occasional wild-caught von Rio tetras, so exports of this fish are rare. Their teeth are quite formidable, and they are rather territorial. Think Roestes altipinna from the Andes mountains, but this is the equivalent from the Atlantic coast. To keep Holladichthys, you'll need large tanks, and also large groups. They get only around 10 centimeters long, but are very territorial, and if they are kept too warm, over 23 degrees centigrade, I find they are very difficult to manage. Their bright yellow fins and lines really look great when they are a dominant fish in the tank, and they will even challenge some cichlids for territory. We won't see this fish exported often, and if you think it's too aggressive, go with the more passive, similar-shaped Markiana. This is by no means a new fish. It was described almost 140 years ago. But like so many species, they had completely disappeared from the hobby. Fish from the south of Brazil, Bolivia, Paraguay and Argentina have been a little bit more difficult to come by, and there are relatively few exports from the south of the continent. In the last few years we've been getting this fish again, and it's a personal favorite because it has the bumbling stupidity of a molly or larger barbs, which makes them ideal as a dither fish for otherwise shy cichlids, and there's a bit of aggression which occupies aggressive southern cichlids like Gymnogeophagus, Crinicycla, or Australoharis. But they have thick enough scales to not really get injured. They also swim near the top most of the time, so they don't pose a threat to fry. They are very tolerant of cooler temperatures, and here in Montreal they can stay outside until late September, which is kind of interesting because it is a good candidate to breed outside in tubs. There are actually 8 Iguanotetras, with only Iguanodectes spilurus, the species from the Amazon lowland, exported often. The others are almost never seen in the hobby, and all are actually nicer looking than the most common species, which is usually exported from Peru. Variatus was exported from Brazil's Rio Branco for the first time this year, and while these are still quite small, I'm sure they will be spectacular when they reach 10 centimeters or so. At least for now, at this size, they get along well with various other tetras, but maybe their aggression will eventually let them dominate the tank when they are adults. Iguanotetras are easy to keep, provided you have enough dissolved oxygen and some flow in the aquarium. When you encounter these fish in nature, it is usually in places where you need to hold on to something because of the current. The family Anostomidae has a huge number of species, and while a lot of the genera that have only 1 or 2 species have some strange looking and odd fish, Leporinus are pretty uniform, other than their color. Leporinus reticulatus is different. It's not huge, I think under 20 centimeters as adults, and has an odd looking horse face. It's also not aggressive at all against other fish or each other. Like all Leporinus, they will destroy plants, but at least they don't go after the fins of their tank mates. Some of these Leporinus from fast-moving water that live in remote places are not only difficult to reach, but also hard to catch. They stay between rocks, in crevices, or jump from the net when you do catch them. They are very easy to keep, as long as they have enough oxygen and frequent water changes. Like most anostomids, they easily get obese and should be fed sparingly. They are also very efficient snail eaters, removing the Malaysian life-bearing snails in my aquariums. If you like the Asian flying fox algae eaters, you'll also like Parodon. They are really similar, living in nature in small groups that feed on algae and microinvertebrates in the rapids. They are not easy to transport because of their need for oxygen, and very few of the 14 species actually got exported. They do make very good community fish for aquariums with cichlids or plecos, and with their relatively small mouth and overall size of less than 10-12 centimeters, they don't bother other fish. This species is found in Suriname and the Guyanas, and is occasionally exported from the Maroni River. Unfortunately, the transport for this type of fish from such a remote location also makes them rather expensive, and they do need to live in small groups of 5 to 10 fish to do well. If you've ever looked at your tetras and thought they have pretty big teeth, if they were bigger they could do some damage, that is what Roestes looks like. They will remind you of a payara with oversized fangs that are used to grab smaller fish in the open water from below. They are shy fish that live in the open water and need fairly large aquariums so that they are not too nervous. After some time in the aquarium, these fish accept most foods and even take flake food, but they still prefer to feed on smaller characins that are attacked in the open water and impaled by their large fangs. Larger fish that do not fit in their mouth are generally ignored. I found that they get along very well with Metinnis because they school a little bit lower than the Roestes, which are mostly oriented towards the surface, or at least the top part of the water column. The genus that actually gave our tetras the Tetra name is a widespread group of fish with gigantic eyes, and is technically too big to be considered an aquarium tetra. We do see Tetragonopterus in the hobby, but not Tetragonopterus rarus, which is, well, rare. That is because these come from Suriname and are also rare in the habitat, so only a handful of fish get exported every year. They seem to be a bit smaller than the common Tetragonopterus from the Amazon, and just as peaceful. These are really easy fish that don't really look at other fish and just raise their fins if one of their own passes by. Of the 15 known species in this genus, they may well be the nicest one, even if we have not really seen most of them in the hobby. If you like horizontally striped fish, our Tetra 7 video is certainly for you. This also concludes the next 10 species. For Tetras 8, we will go small again, even though the flood of new Tetras has slowed down a bit. There are still new and some beautiful new Tetras coming, especially from Brazil, but I would say it is not as wild as the last few years, where we saw a totally new fish just about every month. Make sure to check out the other 6 new Tetra videos and some of the fish in nature content of this channel. See you next time.